This video is part 2, discussing a paper that was published in the American Journal of Islamic Social Sciences and which was presented in 2011, a comparative exploration of the spiritual authority of the awliyā, friends of God, in the Shi'i and Sūfī traditions, with reference to the works of the Dhahabī order and Allamah Tabataba'i. If you would like to listen to the first part of this discussion, go to the previous video. We will be talking about the centrality of the concept and phenomenon of Walayah in both the Twelver Shi'i and Sūfī traditions. With regard to comparative doctrines in Shi'i and Sūfī aqidah, that is belief, we can begin with that of Walayah itself. In the Shi'i tradition, this is obviously very clearly delineated, firstly by the differentiation between Wilayah as an all-encompassing authority and Walayah as the friendship and protection of the Imam. In the Sūfī tradition, the terms Wilayah and Walayah have been more or less used interchangeably. Again, in the case of the Sūfī tradition, the lines of definition have become blurred. According to the Imams of the al-Bayt, the family of the Holy Prophet, Walayah is fundamental to the entire religion of Islam. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, the fifth Imam, says that Walayah or Imamah is the most important duty and the major pillar of Islam and the pivot around which all other pillars revolve. Let us compare this to what Ali al-Hujwiri says. Again, Ali al-Hujwiri was a mystic from Khurasan who wrote Kashf al-Mahjub, a compendium of Sūfī beliefs and personalities, and he writes, the foundation of the entire Sūfī tariqah, meaning not one particular tariqah but the entire Sūfī way, is the affirmation of the existence of Wilayah. All shuyukh are united in this regard, but they speak of Wilayah in different terms. Al-Hujwiri even says that knowledge of Allah rests on Wilayah. Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, the sixth Imam, implies the same. Only the successors are the gates of Allah, to whom belong might and majesty, through which he can be reached. Ahmad al-Tijani, founder of the Tijani order, which emerged at the end of the 18th century in North Africa, and which adheres to classical Sūfī teachings derived from Ghazali and Ibn Arabi, repeats this doctrine but in reference to the awliyā. L'ascète n'arrivera à Dieu que par l'intermédiaire des gnostiques titulaires d'une permission spéciale d'initiation. Meaning, the ascetic only reaches God through the mediation of the Gnostics, holders of a special permission to give initiation, and that is in the work of Amadou Makhtar Samb, Introduction à la Tariqa Tijaniya ou Voie spirituelle de Sheikh Ahmad Tijani. Amadou Makhtar Samb himself was a Tijani. Al-Hujwiri does actually differentiate between Wilayah and Walayah, saying Walayat means etymologically power to dispose, tasarruf, and Wilayat means possession of command, imarat. From Al-Hujwiri's words, it can be seen that entering the Sūfī path, or tariqah, entails the obligation of acknowledging the concept and institution of Walayah, and also that the Sufis, who according to Al-Hujwiri are the awliyā, possess the command, or the amr, which would imply that it is obligatory to obey them. Divine protection from sin. In the Shi'i tradition, it is believed that Wilayah is divinely bestowed upon the Imams. According to al-Sadiq, no Imam is free to choose the next Imam. Rather, the imamate is a covenant, ahd from God, and the prophet that is passed to the next successor. The imamate is a covenant, ahd from Allah, to whom belong might and majesty, which is entrusted to men who are named. It is not for the imam to withhold it from him who is after him. This is supported by verse 11 of chapter 14 in the Holy Qur'an, Surah Ibrahim. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قالت لهم رسلهم إن نحن إلا بشر مثلكم ولكن الله يمن على من يشاء من عباده وما كان لنا أن نأتيكم بسلطان إلا بإذن الله وعلى الله فليتوكل للمؤمنين صدق الله العلي العظيم. Which means their messengers answered, "True, we are only human beings like you, but God favors whichever of his servants he chooses. We cannot bring you any proof," or it can be translated as authority, "unless God permits it. So let the believers put all their trust in him." Sunni mystic al-Hakim al-Tirmidhi makes an almost identical statement, but in reference to the proto-Sufis of his time. Like Nubuwwah, prophethood, Walayah is a covenant, aqd, with God, but it is a divine gift and not a right the believer earns by his own endeavours. In the Shi'i tradition, an integral part of Wilayah is that the imam is also ma'soom, divinely protected from committing any evil. Interestingly, we find that while the infallibility of the imams of the al-Bayt is largely denied in the Sufi tradition, as is the belief that they are divinely selected guides, the belief that the awliyā had been divinely selected and the doctrine of their infallibility became standard doctrines. In al-Hujwiri's text appears the idea that this infallibility is also divinely bestowed upon the awliyā. However, al-Hujwiri is careful to define a special type of infallibility in relation to the awliyā in order to offset any potential accusations that he was claiming for the Sufis the same status as the prophets. Stating that only prophets are ma'soom, he prefers to use the term mahfūd, protected from any evil that involves the denial of their saintship, their walayah. There appears to be no mention in the teachings of the Imams of Ahlul Bayt that the awliyā are mahfūd, rightly guided leaders. Linked to the matter of being ma'soom in the Shi'i tradition is then the position as the rightly guided leader of the community, whom it is obligatory to follow. To follow anyone else not only means potentially being misguided, but also disobeying the command of God. Imam Muhammad al-Baqir, the fifth Imam, again makes this very clear. The Imams are the ones firmly rooted in knowledge, pure and protected from sin and error, and they are the light of God, by which people may walk and be guided aright. And again, for those who have a little bit of a literalist mindset, this doesn't mean that they are made out of light or that they are literally Allah's light, but what it means is that they are the means through which Allah makes known his knowledge to humanity. Imam Ja'far as-Sadiq, the sixth Imam, confirms this by saying that he who knows us is a believer, and he who denies us is an unbeliever. He who neither knows us nor denies us is misguided till he returns to the path of guidance, which Allah has made an obligation for him as a binding obedience to us. A similar doctrine to that of imamate can be found in the Sufi tradition, holding that where Nubuwwah, prophethood, ends, Walayah begins. The awliyā follow the prophets and confirm their messages at all times, for the prophets are more favoured by God than the awliyā, and consequently Walayah ends where prophethood begins. Since Walayah continues to uphold and confirm the prophetic message, the wali becomes the successor of the Prophet and his representative. For example, Al-Hujwiri says that the wali is like a living representation of the Prophet in the life of the murid, a living proof, burhan, of prophethood. He further says that the saints are the governors of the universe. Here he seems to be alluding to this doctrine of tafweed, that is, Allah delegating certain powers to his awliyā. There used to be certain groups who were identified as the mufawwidha among those who followed Imam Ali, peace be upon him, and there has been debate as to the extent to which Allah delegates his powers to his chosen representatives. This debate has existed in the Twelver Shi'i tradition, and here we can see it also appearing in the Sunni Sufi tradition. Abdul Karim Jili held that the awliyā are the human embodiments of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, and his holy progeny's essence, al-Haqiqat al-Muhammadiyya. He writes, the perfect man is the qutb, the axis on which the spheres of existence revolve from first to last. And since things came into being, he is the one, wahid, forever and ever. He has various guises and appears in diverse bodily tabernacles or temples, kana'is. His own original name is Muhammad, his name of honor is Abu Qasim, his description Abdullah, and his title Shamsuddin, the son of the religion. In every age he bears a name suitable to his guise, libas, in that age. I once met him in the form of my Sheikh Sharafuddin Ismail al-Jabarti, but I did not know that he, the Sheikh, was the Prophet, although I knew that he, the Prophet, was the Sheikh. The name Muhammad is not applied except to the idea of Muhammad, al-Haqiqat al-Muhammadiyya. Thus, when he appeared in the form of Shibli, Shibli said to his disciple, "Bear witness that I am the apostle of God." And the disciple, being one of the illuminated, recognized the Prophet and said, "I bear witness that thou art the apostle of God." The Tijani order likewise holds that le saint parmi les siens est comparable au prophète dans sa communauté. Le suivre, c'est suivre le prophète. Meaning, the saint among his people is comparable to the Prophet in his community. To follow him is to follow the Prophet. This idea of the Muhammadan essence, the Muhammadan reality, being some kind of ontological existence or entity and manifesting itself in awliyā who have reached such a level of perfection that they become receptacles of this essence, while existing in the Sunni Sufi tradition, does not exist in the Twelver Shi'i tradition. Although there is a similar sounding narration in the Twelver Shi'i hadith collections, a narration in Ibn Abi Zaynab al-Nu'mani's Kitab al-Ghayba, in which Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq, alayhi salam, the sixth Imam, says, "The first of us is Muhammad, the middle is Muhammad, and the last of us is Muhammad." And here ends this section of the research paper on critically comparing the concept and phenomenon of Walayah in the Twelver Shi'i and Sunni Sufi traditions. We will, inshallah, continue with this discussion in the next video. Thank you for listening.